I just want to be first to apologize that this first couch talk, we had a error. My error. The battery was fully charged. The lighting was good. The mics were connected. But the one thing I forgot was to delete the stuff of the SD card. So Hayley and Sarah are probably not going to be seen in part of the video.
Parts of it, they're going to be missing.
But you are going to hear our voice. And then because it was a very passionate talk that we had, we're going to make sure that everyone will be able to listen to it. But yeah.
What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Couch Talks. Today on our brand new couch, we have me, obviously, Jeremy, Sarah, and Hayley.
We firstly like to welcome Hayley as one of our new coaches to the S Legion. She's currently still studying, so do you want to tell the listeners about what you're currently doing?
Yeah, so I will be taking more of the nutrition route on the team. So currently studying for my accreditation in sports nutrition. So it should be a couple more months of grinding away at that and we're ready to go.
So excited. I think a lot of people can value from what you have out there, and your passion for nutrition was the key that I was like, Hayley, you need to come work with us. Because I was like, we need help with nutrition because at the end of the day, we only can do something within the spectrum of what we know, you know, and you definitely are like really passionate about the nutrition side of things. I was like, this is what we need. We need someone that passionate about it, that they can focus on that and really educate us and the clients as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I definitely have a strong passion for starting to bridge a little bit of a gap between the fitness and the health, the whole health side of things, which I think a lot of that comes down to nutrition and educating people on just how to eat, like looking at whole nutritious foods and how to eat them and satisfy cravings and hunger and yeah, a bit more of a holistic approach.
I think a big shift of like what I guess most of us now and compared to when we first started is shifting from reading the nutritional label to the ingredients. So now I focus so much more on the ingredient side of things as compared to like before. We're like, which one has the lowest fat? Like,
yeah, steering away from like just looking at things for the energy value of the food and the actual nutritional value of the foods that we're putting in our bodies is looking at ingredients and not just trying to pick the lowest calorie or the lowest carb or lowest fat.
But times have really changed, I guess. Like, you know, if you look back like 5 years ago, it was just diet plans. That's what, you know, everyone was prescribing, you know, that was the kind of given of what online coaches did and like coaches out there did. I mean, the last time I got a plan was when I just got a food plan. It was just like broccoli, chicken breasts, you know, and just very basic. And I just followed that because, you know, generally for competition, you think, oh yeah, you just do this and you think this just works for everyone else. But realistically, it doesn't. And competing is obviously not healthy. So you're obviously taking that healthier route where you're focusing more on the ingredients in the actual food. It's like, how do you actually live more healthily? And then we can also talk about like, you know, how health is not just the food you eat, but it's about how you feel.
Yes. Yeah. Health is the whole approach, and yeah, it's not just how much weight you lift in the gym or what you weigh, what you look like. It really comes down to how you feel and how your body functions. So yeah,
and those are the cues that even Hayley's now telling us is kind of like, shit, we should think about that a little bit more. We do the bare minimum, especially with like, you know, sleep, stress, you know, all these other variables that can play a role in how your health and fitness is. Because to be a high performing individual, I think everything has to be pretty balanced. You have to have good sleep. You have to have very little stress. You have to be eating enough food, good quality food. But obviously we can go into a rabbit hole about different things. And I know there's something, you know, obviously called seed oils.
We're not talking about that today.
We're not talking about that today.
We're not talking about that today.
I did actually put that into my prologue yesterday. So I went to the shops. I was like, okay, I'm going to grab some brown rice because Nicole told me there's two different types of brown rice packets. And you look at they're both, one's organic whole grain brown rice and the other one's just a normal brown rice. Same packaging, sunrise, but one of it does have vegetable oil. And I'm like, wait, why does this have vegetable oil and this one doesn't? Like, you know? And so it's just interesting. But like, once again, we want to keep people entertained. So don't worry. The next one, we will probably go in a bit more depth into that one. Haley doesn't want to, she doesn't want to scare you guys right now.
Overwhelm everyone.
So overwhelming. We'll just start with the basics first. Start with the basics, different levels. Yeah.
And obviously the amount of knowledge is something that, you know, we have to now filter with clients, and Haley's going to help us as coaches to help, you know, the clients better and the, you know, the listeners better as well. And I think that's the important part of what we do. We try to just help people become better from where they are. And an interesting thing you mentioned when we're talking outside, you were saying about the low-hanging fruit. Did you want to go a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's sort of working on where you currently are at in your journey, and that might be coming from someone with absolutely no nutritional knowledge or skills whatsoever, or somebody who even like has been a bodybuilder and they might really know how to, like, they're a whiz at tracking their macros and using MyFitnessPal and all of these kinds of things, but what other skills do they need to develop, and where do we start with that? And it's start with the easiest things first before trying to make it really complicated, because you'll maximize more out of going for those lower hanging fruits first.
Yeah, and that is so like important to remember, because it's like, you know, when we started, it was just diet plan. There was no like teaching you about foods, and we just look up bro science on like, you know, on the internet, and they'll be like, here, this is what Jay Cutler did.
But it's like, what happens next though? So like, what happens after the meal plan's done? Where does that leave people?
That's exactly where Haley's going to come in and really upskill all of us to really take us as coaches to the next level, so we can help people better. And Haley's going to be our nutrition specialist to really focus on helping all our clients improve their knowledge base and set the right requirements for them to actually not feel overwhelmed. I think that's a huge thing, and not feel like we set this sort of goal, like we're selling or lose 10 kilos in 10 weeks. Like our goal now is focusing on helping people, you know, build better health and fitness lifestyles, routines, habits, understanding, education. Because it all comes down to education, right? Like I believe that, you know, we only know what we know. But then it's until you actually learn more, like as we are learning from you, and it's kind of like, whoa, shit, we don't know so much, hey? And it's just like a learning process that, you know, hopefully will make us better for clients, yeah.
I'm excited to do it, so
yes.
Let's do it.
I also want to mention Sarah is also, we just got her, you're doing a course soon as well, do you want to give a little rundown of that?
Yeah, so I'm starting a course in specifically women's health. So how to program around different hormonal differences in females in particular. So things like people that might have PCOS, are peri or menopausal, and just also programming around like the time of month and that sort of thing. So just for my own experience working with different women, they're doing similar programming. I'm getting very different results, and it's quite frustrating for my clients, and everything seems to be like working the way they should, but there seems to be some underlying concerns. So I'm very much looking forward to being able to give different tools and methods for these women to feel empowered to getting better results and feeling better about their body, understanding how their body works a bit better too.
Yes, that is super exciting. Once again, you know, we are all leveling up in some way, and it's always something good to really know that there's so much information out there, but we're here to dissect the information out there for people. Because, you know, there's a lot of studies, and unless you know how to read those studies, people make assumptions like, oh, this study said not to drink wine every day, but then this other study will be like, wine is good for your heart. So like, you know, and the news will show a whole, like, you know, a whole thing about that. I swear I always see something along those lines of, chocolate a day, you know, keeps you healthy or something. And
there's a narrative for every different agenda.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to.
If you want to be told something in particular, just Google the question, and there'll be something to prove that that what you're doing is right, no matter what it is. So yeah, you need to
find an answer for it. But like, oh, this is right, and then you're just like, well, you just Googled it, like, you know. And I think that's where, you know, as coaches, we are here to kind of help dissect a bit of that, to kind of be like, oh, like, you know, this is for you. Like, what can we do to help you best? And obviously, we're only going to help people within our scope of practice. And then if we can't help someone, we're always going to, send them off to someone else that can help them. Yeah. Sweet. So I guess we'll go through some questions today. So I want to talk a little bit about, do females have a harder time achieving results?
Who wants to go?
I'm in a more female only talk this day. So yeah.
I mean, I think
We'll let Hayley go and then Sarah.
Yeah.
Who goes?
Yeah.
I think that's really dependent on what the goal is. I think as females, obviously we tend to carry more body fat and our bodies do work in different ways, but I absolutely don't think it necessarily has to be harder if we're using the right tools and getting help in a way that is personalized for us and somebody that understands that there are a lot of different elements that come into play with a women's hormonal system and how that may affect them achieving those results as well. So I don't necessarily think they have a harder time achieving the results, but the pathway to those results is different.
Okay. So, like, would you say that it could take a longer time, or like there's more things to navigate through?
I think there's more things to navigate through. Like, it might take a longer period of time. I mean, sure, there's probably ways you could fast track it and achieve. For instance, it depends what the goal is as well. Are we talking like just fat loss, or are we talking they want to recomp, or like?
I want to tone up.
I want to
Tone up, because this is something we hear a lot. Like, a lot of women will be like, oh, like, I want to tone up. And then I don't think they understand that concept of what tone up actually means.
Yeah, so to me, like, if someone's asking for tone up, I would be thinking a body recomposition. So they want to lose some body fat, gain some muscle, look fit and active is from physique. Like, looking at a physique is probably where my head goes to if somebody says to me tone up. And so, yeah, absolutely. For women, that will look very different to what it's going to look like for a man. Harder, no, just more considerations, I think.
And it's definitely like a very hard path. I do feel like there is more things to consider along the way, and it really does come down to the coach and that communication between transparency with the client and the coach. That's like the most important part, because if you aren't communicating to your coach like these problems or underlying conditions and stuff like that, at time of the month even, then it's something that you can't really manage. And it's really hard for a coach to be like, hey, you need to do this or do this next, because we're just going to assume they're just following the plan. And then they'll be like, everything's perfect. And then all of a sudden they tell you, 6 weeks later, like, oh, I feel like bloated. I've been feeling bloated for the last 6 weeks. And you're kind of like, what? Why haven't you told me this in week 1? Because then you could change up the food source. It could be as simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
I agree.
Sarah, did you want to go?
Yeah, I think that's a really well answered. That was a really good answer, Hayley.
We can disagree with Hayley.
I agree.
on that. She said.
Definitely, from my experience, like, there's obviously outliers from both male and female perspective, but typically the older the woman gets, there tends to be more underlying variables to consider, and typically in the realm of fat loss, it's almost always a longer period of time that needs to be taken. Not always, but yeah, generally the older the woman gets, there seems to be a little bit more considerations that need to be taken in. And that's not to say that progress isn't being made every week, but in the sense that I find if you're looking at the key metrics like the weight and centimeters, generally, like the key for fat loss, it's very clear often on a week-to-week basis with a man in a lot of cases. Females,
Yes.
in a lot of cases, females, it's not like that. And it's important to, as a coach, communicate to your client what is happening and what we can see in other metrics for progress. So we often find that, things like the sleep and stress for some reason have a lot more impact on women's progress a lot more often, in my experience, than it is with men. So sometimes we just need to really like dial in all of the things that are happening and then look at like a bigger picture and be able to show where we're making other like progress in other areas versus like not just looking at, the scale trending down in a linear fashion, which happens a lot more in men. And that again with hormones, like, whether or not you have a regular cycle or not, as a female, there's still so many other fluctuations with our hormones that can impact the scale as well.
Yeah.
I do want to touch a little bit about that and also mention that, do you think females are more resilient than guys?
I was
I think that females are more resilient in that they will work at something longer and they will be more patient with getting those results if they've got the right support and the right tools and things are progressing. I do think males are probably more attracted to going like harder, faster, get that result, get in, get out kind of thing, which doesn't work for everyone.
That's totally understandable. I do believe that, females are definitely more resilient, but it's something, we're talking about being a coach, then it's something that we have to kind of like, it's the bigger picture, as you said, it's not about the scale of weight. It could be like, are you moving better? Are you feeling better? Are you sleeping better? Are you feeling healthier? Like you start to realize that it's not just simply a weight loss goal. But that does also go back to the question, like, are they getting slower results? Because, like it would be a longer process, but the results would technically be slower, right?
And it depends on what your definition, like, because I think the question was, is it harder? But what's everyone's definition of hard? Like for some people, hard might be like being really, really hungry and because they're going, so if we're talking fat loss, they're in like quite an aggressive deficit and like that's hard, like feeling that hunger all the time and that lower energy is hard. Whereas for other people, it might be a less aggressive deficit, so they're not feeling those day-to-day like really strong hunger signals or those day-to-day like hardships, but it's a longer period of time that they're making sacrifices for. So I think it comes down to what your definition of hard is as well.
And that's perceived to every individual. And I wanted to say when I brought up the resilient question, it was more because stress is so perceived by everyone. Like, a female could be like, I'm like feeling fine, 6 out of 10. But realistically, they're probably like, let's say they're like a single mom working double jobs, has kids, they're probably going to be like 10 out of 10 stress. But in their mind, they're like, I'm like 6 out of 10. But realistically, we have to realize like, oh shit, no, you're actually like a 10 out of 10 stress. Like
that is so true. I feel like so many women they downplay their stress because it's like their baseline. It's like, well, I've had one client where I'm like, you need to take some time out for yourself, or you need to at least like look in within yourself and give yourself like self-awareness score out of 10 of how you're feeling. And she's just like, I don't feel like I can even do that because if I am broken or feeling really stressed, what's going to happen? I can't stop. Like I've got to keep like up with the kids. So I feel like in a lot of cases, mums just in particular, their stress levels are so high and they don't have the luxury of like really winding down and trying to work on that without a coach. That's what we're here for.
And I will have to agree that yes, maybe, females are definitely way more resilient than guys in that regard. I think, but it's still individualized to every individual. I'm not saying that every individual, but the majority would be like females do generally have it harder. They do have kids, and they're looking after the kids plus working and like doing everything like in the household. I couldn't imagine. Plus, then you'd be like, let's do a bit of cardio and do some weight training. Go, you're adding all this extra stress to the, ecosystem, if you would say, and that's just gonna make things sometimes worse. And sometimes it's about, hey, you need to pull back. Like you need to maybe do less, and then this is gonna get you better results.
And there's like pros and cons of like being a woman, right? So there's like a lot of like hurdles. I wouldn't say like it's harder. It's just females have more hurdles. But we're also much better at like getting through those hurdles. Although some of them obviously we can't control, but there are so many other things that we're blessed with that just kind of help us to push through and still make equal like kind of results and progress to men. So obviously the first hurdles are like our menstrual cycles. So there is like the, you know, the follicular phase and luteal phase. And obviously in some phases we're going to have a lower energy levels, higher hunger, and like, you know, the weight will fluctuate, things like that. And the major one is obviously like birth control. So a lot of females are on birth control, and that's like a huge hurdle that males don't have. But I think what plays to the females' advantages is also like, firstly, from just I guess like a body DNA kind of standpoint, there are studies to show that like the resilience that comes from women's like mental also goes into like training. So women have more better, higher threshold for like pain in general. So we can actually push to failure a little bit better than men, where men will kind of fail a little bit sooner than females sometimes. And also just being able to handle more volume, higher reps, and just that kind of like endurance. When it comes to cardio and things like that, it is proven that apparently females can like withstand that a little bit better. But then that also means that in order for us to achieve that same result as men, we have to do even more, because our body can take that amount of volume that females do need a little bit more volume than men because of that. So it is a double-edged sword. It is like we can handle more, but for us to get that same result, we do have to do more. And then when it comes to that mental side of things, when it comes to nutrition, we all have both male and female clients, and I think most coaches can agree that the compliance level of most females generally is a little bit higher than males. Like females are just better at like kind of sticking to the plan and executing, as much as like, you know, they may not get the results from like sticking to it. They're just like very good at sticking to it. So it is like a pro and con, I feel. Like you can do both.
It's very interesting because you do bring up that, you know, females can handle more volume. I do believe that's kind of true, but I also do believe that it's because females can't load as much weight as guys.
Yeah, as well. Yeah,
and that's just to do with like human evolution, and obviously males are there created to hunt. So I think we can have build more internal pressure. I do say this quite often, like more internal pressure, we're structurally built to handle more load. Hence why females sometimes have to go that higher volume in reps and sets to actually get the same amount of load.
Or higher frequency, just because we recover faster because we're not able to lift as much load to like elicit that result. So we actually don't lift as much weight. So we recover faster. So we're able to like train more often. And so we can hit a body part. Like some girls train legs 3 times a week, or the wellness girls 3 times a week, they're totally fine. Guys, after one day, they're like debilitated for the whole week.
I just want to mention though that it's not like you should be training more frequency now. It's about improving your quality still. I still believe there is still way other variables. This is if in an ideal world we all had the same training level, then yes, more frequency might do a female more better. But, you know, for the sake of, you know, if our clients are listening to this, I would definitely say that you have to focus more intensity individually of what your level is. Because, you know, some people can't train at a, you know, RPE of 9 out of 10, which is 1 rep left in the tank. Like, people don't understand that. I see that, I'm like, that's probably like a 5 out of 10, but to them, it's a 9 out of 10. If they all trained at the same level and all the training variables were the same, then yes, I think females could technically hit at a high frequency, but it's dependent on what type of exercise and what movement. Because I think,
and are they recovering from it as well, from all the external factors that they have going on in their life?
Yeah.
So it's like,
you need that stimulus to build muscle. You need that recovery you need that stimulus to tear down muscles. You need that recovery to actually build muscle. Recovery happens outside the gym. People think, oh, can I train more? And I'm like, are you recovering? And then I think when people hear recovering, they think they're just not training. And I'm like, well, no, you need to recover to actually build muscle. Because the building muscle doesn't happen inside the gym. Like, you tear down muscle, but then you're actually building muscle outside the gym. That's why I think, So, how to better plan for time of the month?
I think maybe what people need to know is in case they don't know. So basically we feel our best in the first 2 weeks or so in the cycle. So right after your period, or some people just once their period arrives, they instantly like feel better. Some people feel not the best in the first couple of days. It really depends. Again, there's a lot of underlying factors, whether you have different conditions like endometriosis, PCOS, all that kind of stuff can affect it. But generally, as a general rule, the moment your cycle begins up to ovulation is when you're going to feel the best. And then basically after ovulation, it's all like downhill from there. A lot of people can experience a weight jump during ovulation, and then very close towards their period, very, very low energy levels and very, very high hunger levels. It depends on whether you have the luxury of kind of giving into that as well. So sometimes if you have like a set goal, or like if you're someone in competition prep, just because your hunger levels go up just before your period, there's not much we can do about it. It's just something to note and understand. And I think just understanding it really helps as well. So sometimes I just feel like, oh, I'm just like not feeling very strong today. Like my period is coming soon. However, am I going to be like, well, I'm not feeling strong today, so I will just take it easy? Or I'm just still going to push to whatever weight will allow me to get to failure. If this means a lower weight this week, that's fine, but I'm still going to push that intensity. Or do I just kind of take it easy? It's still something that like, I think it's very individualized, and it's something that like each client should speak to their coach about. It depends on their goals and like where they're at in life, like where their stress levels is and things like that, and whether they actually have like the luxury of being able to take that into consideration. Because sometimes even though we feel shit, like it happens every month, you know, like if some people are like, do you even train when you're on your period? I'm like, well, if I didn't train when I was on my period, then like literally you only train like 3 weeks, like a month. Like we can't fully take it off, but it is something that you can definitely consider. How much of it you can kind of change is up for debate, I guess. I think it's kind of hard sometimes as well.
I think going into a training session, like you shouldn't use your period as a reason to train at a lower intensity. You should always be, or like, you know, dropping the weight. It's, I think, being more in tune with how you're feeling on the day. So that really does require a little bit more of a presence in your training. And, you know, you can try and start off with your usual weight and just, see how it all goes. And you'll definitely feel within yourself if you're feeling out of breath, fatigued, your heart rate is up, or you're mentally just not able to focus. Sometimes you need to kind of go like think about what time of the month it is, and if it does seem to align, then you can maybe adjust your training and drop the weight a little bit, and you can still train at that RPE level of 8 or 9 usually with a lower weight, and just go at a slower tempo to just try and work the muscle. So I would typically say, like, if you are feeling a bit run down, don't be smashing those like compound movements. So don't be doing like, try not to be doing like an 8 or 9 RPE.
No PBs.
It's just not like your entire body is going to just really feel it, but you can still train at a high intensity on a lot of isolation exercises at a lighter weight. That's definitely one thing. And then if you do sort of have a day, and like it again depends on if you're doing a comp prep or, you know, you've got a very specific goal in mind. Otherwise, talk to your coach, or if you don't have a coach, if you really are feeling super fatigued, you may need to kind of look at your week as a whole and go, I actually have a really busy weekend doing all these other things. I've got to run around after the kids. If I train tonight, I'm definitely only going to get 6 hours sleep. I already feel really, really like drained, and am I going to even be able to train tomorrow, or even get out of bed tomorrow if I train? So sometimes you kind of have to think about, do I need to take a rest day? But only like, you know, look at it as the big picture month to month and how you're feeling.
Yeah, I agree. I think what you mentioned about like the external factors of like, you know, your workload and what's happening on the weekend, or like, are you going to party, or like, are you going to drink alcohol, like all that kind of stuff actually impacts it much more than like the period, for sure.
Yeah. I think, I agree. I like that. Sarah, you considered all the other factors, and that you can just, instead of just going, okay, what am I going to do today? It's like, look at your whole week, and if maybe today is not the best day, is there another day that you could possibly do this session? If you've got like a heavy leg session or something like that, it's like, is it going to work in my schedule? Maybe I can swap it out for something that's a little bit less demanding. But also just going back to that mindset of, I guess, if you walk in with your head already in, I'm weaker today and this is not going to work out for me, then it's probably not. Rather than just adapting as you go throughout the workout, go in with good intentions, but be forgiving of yourself if maybe you can't hit the numbers that you normally hit, or you do feel a bit fatigued, or if you need to, you know, take longer rest periods, or like just adapt your training as you go along. And yeah, give yourself that mental break and be forgiving of yourself if you do need to, but not going in with that mindset of, well, I'm just going to write this session off already before you've started it, kind of thing. Like give it a go and then see as the session goes along, like how that works out for you. I mean, you could surprise yourself and it works out just fine. Yeah, you could hit a PB.
I like what you mentioned about the rest periods though. Sometimes I think like depending on where you're at with your cycle, if you just need to rest a little bit longer, that just changes everything. Like sometimes some sessions may take a little bit longer than usual. Maybe you need to warm up a little bit more. Maybe you just need to rest a little bit longer and then you just like, you feel great the next set. Yeah.
But I do also like that you said be forgiving of yourself. There are many cases where people are just like, oh, I'm just having like such a bad session, and often like it's like even the hormones are influencing the mood, and then they're just like, what's the point of being here? And like again, women are so hard on themselves, so it's just like, you know, more often than not, you're doing great, sweetie. Just
I love it. That's what Sarah would say. So I love how you say, like, you know, being present is so important in your training sessions. I think it's the biggest thing that people don't realize. And, you know, as we talk about, like, you know, being present, understanding the cues of what you're feeling, like whether that be stress, whether that be other factors, life stress factors, fatigue, sleep not going well, could be time of the month, period pain, could be a lot of different things. And I think that there's a lot of variables that the client needs to, like, you need to learn about yourself to really, really help you learn. So then that way in the future, you know, when it's coming, you're already prepared. And as you said, you know, go into it with a more positive mindset instead of like, going into it like, kind of like, oh no, this is going to write off the session. But I guarantee you, even if it's a shit session, I'm sure it's still going to be better than nothing. But you still got to be positive and be forgiving at the same time. I think forgiving is a huge thing. I think people are too hard on themselves in what they do. And, you know, you've got to allow yourself to sometimes, it's not always going to be perfect. You know, I think people are always perfect. And I think that's where some problems are with a lot of people. And I think you just have to accept that, you know, progress is progress. And even if you feel like, I think you mentioned a quote when we're talking outside about the going sideways. Do you want to mention that? Like, she put out all these quotes on me when I was just randomly talking to her.
So I guess sometimes growth is sideways and it's not upwards. And sometimes it's not necessarily growth, but making the most of the level that you're on before you try and keep pushing yourself up and up and up all the time. I think for two reasons. One, it gives you like a bit of time to appreciate where you're at, but also so that you make the most of it as well. I think we're always, especially now with the hustle culture, everyone's like, go, 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 move forward, move forward, move forward, move forward.
Next thing.
What's next? It's like, have you actually maximized what you're doing at the moment? Like, you might actually find more enjoyment by staying on the level that you're at and like really appreciating it and making the most of it before you keep trying to like push yourself forward, push forward. Like, progression is not always, just like with your weight, if you've got like a weight goal, a body composition goal, like it doesn't always linearly go up. Like we have days that are not going this way, they're going this way, but that doesn't
a lot of those days actually. It's always this way.
I think to not be moving forward is sometimes looked on as going backwards, but that's not the case. Like sometimes you are just where you are, and that's all right.
And I do believe that, you know, social media has done that. Like, you know, this expectation of what life should be, or someone's succeeding already, and you're like, I want to be there. And then you want to reach it so badly that you don't want to go sideways. Like, you know, you just think that they just went straight up. And, you know, there could be cases where that 0.01% of people that you might follow is literally like successful overnight. Like, you know, they might have created something 6 months and then become like they chose the right idea, you know, but they could have spent years before that to actually get there, like to develop the skills they need to actually create a business, you know. And I think that is the same with like your weight goals as well, like your weight loss goals. Like, if you're going through a weight loss goals, I mean, if you guys watch my bro log, then you would say that like I stay the same weight for like 4 to 5 weeks. I haven't even counted macros until like next week. Like, I've literally just been eating the same foods, just doing the same things, and my weight literally stayed the same. Like, you know, for like 4 weeks. And, you know, I could have given up, but I just kept going, and eventually my weight just started dropping down quickly. And now it's plateaued again. So now it's going sideways again. And hopefully it's going to start trending downwards more, but it is one of those things.
I think some people always think like maintaining just seems like a bad word. Like some people just think maintaining is bad, like maintenance is bad, but I'm like, that's why I came up with the new word and I was telling them, it's just that, and like anyone who, you know, looks into like stocks and stuff like that will understand the term accumulation. And I prefer to call it accumulation or like solidifying where you're at. So sometimes when I just hit either like say maybe like a new PB at something and I'm like, I want to stay at this weight. Like some people are like, oh, I hit this weight next week. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to like add more sets. I'm going to add more reps. I'm going to add more weight. Like sometimes it's good to just stay where you are and then like try to solidify that so that that is your new normal. It's like, I'm going to just like keep doing the same weight at the same exercise, same number of reps until this becomes like my just so normal for my body before like taking the step further. And I think it's the same with calories as well, especially when it comes to like, there was just this thing, especially on social media, where everyone's just like, how high can we go with calories? Like, how much can I feed my athlete? Like, I want my athlete to be eating like this much. It's just like a big like boasting thing to be able to say like, I can eat this much. But sometimes I think it's okay to just let your body be at a certain weight and a certain calories and just like solidify that. Let your body be like comfortable and like normal with that before actually taking any steps further. And I think especially for males that always like want to push food, want to push the weight up, blah, blah, blah. Like,
yeah, we always go.
You know, I'm like, I think you can just solidify exactly where you're at and like let your body sit there for a little bit before like pushing forward. And it's okay to like keep calories the same for a couple of weeks. It's okay to like keep training the same. It's okay to keep things the same and you're not going backwards, but rather you're like solidifying exactly what you have achieved prior. And even when it's the opposite way going down, I used to be like, oh my God, like if I'm not losing weight that week is a bad thing. But I'm like, well, I'm solidifying this new low weight that I was prior. And that mindset like kind of really helps. And eventually it will drop, especially when people hit a plateau. Plateau is being seen as so bad, but it's like, but you're at your new low like range now. You're not going up to the higher range of weight that you were, but rather you're like solidifying this new low that you have, and you should like celebrate that. And I think especially females are like, well, I'm not losing weight. Well, I'm like, well, you're not gaining weight either. Yeah. So that's good. You just, this is your new.
That one track mind.
Yeah.
Like, is it really a plateau? Like, because I think if your like weight is staying the same, generally you're working on other areas of your life in that time. So you're like, just before your body will probably do another drop in weight, for example, you're plateauing at that weight. You're not losing more weight, but you're training harder. You're feeling more energized. You're going to bed earlier. Like all these things are just slowly accumulating in that plateau. And then suddenly for however long, 2 weeks or whatever, you see a massive drop off in one day. And it wasn't because you ate less that day before. It was from the like plateau of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That was great. Like honestly, the accumulation phase I love. Honestly, it makes a lot of sense. I'm like, shit, we need to implement that. We're telling the clients. But like, I think it's another thing that I think people don't understand that in the accumulation phase, there's so many things you can focus on besides just your weight or training goals. Like if your goal weight is going up, it's more saying like, let's say, okay, you do the same weight, you do the same reps, but those reps are executed better. You're creating more internal pressure. The form is perfect. All these things will eventually accumulate. And I think, it's not just simply like we just stay in the accumulation phase. It's more like you're improving in the accumulation phase because your execution should get better in whatever you're doing in that phase. Does that kind of make sense? Did you guys kind of get me?
Yeah. I'd like to add another factor, but like, enjoyment as well.
Oh, yeah.
I think like most of us probably started this because we enjoy going to the gym, and then somewhere along the way we got caught up in the progression and chasing the next thing that we forgot to like go in and just enjoy what we're doing as well.
Yeah.
I think taking that pressure away of I have to go in today and I have to be better than I was last week can actually give you back a little bit of enjoyment as well. Like if you're feeling, I think a common thing for people is they get bored in their training and this, and they want to change things up and they want to do this and they want to do that. But I think if you remove a little bit of that pressure of I have to be better than last week, then it will give back a little bit of enjoyment for you as well. So I think that's another factor that people need to consider, and something that gets a little bit lost again in that people not appreciating the accumulation phase and always wanting to be like gaining or losing, that you also lose an appreciation of enjoyment and life around it. So
it's like this accumulation phase is seen as they want a new training program every month. You know, they're like, oh, I'm bored. I saw this exercise online. I want to do this. And I'm like, but you haven't even perfected the basics, you know, like enjoy that process first, you know, do the basics really, really well, execute really, really well, find that enjoyment again, as you said, like in doing the basics. And I think enjoying like the whole process, you know, and realize this is the lifestyle you kind of want to live. And I think when you realize that, or when, you know, people realize that, they're going to enjoy the whole thing a lot more. Because if they're going to go into like, oh, it's a 12-week challenge, or like, you know, I'm doing this for just a 12-week challenge, and after that, what are you going to do? Like, go back to how you were? Like, are you going to feel great about that? Because we don't want to see clients go back that way. We want to see clients keep going, like improving, going through, you know, periods where they are plateaued, but then slowly improving, like over time. Because the improvement in the accumulation phase will make you better. I think it's just like adding those bricks. It's like adding the cement between the bricks to kind of make it more solidified.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. But I love the accumulation phase. I love it.
I'll do one more analogy, the tipping point. So like you have like, I don't know, like a balancey thing that has like two
Balance
cups.
go. Yeah.
And one's getting filled with water, but it's staying the same. It's getting filled with more water, which the water can be just like, we're just like, like tweaking your training, tweaking your sleep, your stress is down. I don't know, another your food sources are a bit like cleaner or something like that, and then like eventually it's just enough, and it pretty much drops like that. And that more so for women happens all the time. Like doesn't happen like you're plateauing, nothing's happening, getting frustrated. Just trust the process. That's what you hear every week from your coach. And then like the fourth week you dropped like a crazy amount.
Yeah,
I love that, because that's literally what it means to trust the process.
Yeah.
And even as coaches, I'm not gonna lie, I mean, we're just making the best estimate from our knowledge base and experience to kind of help a client, because we don't know like what's going to happen in 10 weeks. If someone goes, I want to lose 3 kilos, I'll be like, cool, okay, let's give it a go. Like we'll use what we know, and we're going to work with you with full communication, transparency to help you get to that 3 kilo goal. But then like we don't know, it might not even happen sometimes, because life could hit the fan, you know, life stress could hit the fan. Like, you know, they could, I don't know, for some reason lose their job out of nowhere, you know, add in all this extra stress, or their sleep just gets worse, or they're doing shift work. Shift work is a whole nother topic, but we'll save that for another time. But yeah, that's going to be a bit harder. But yeah, it's just that case of, it's interesting. I love it.
But sometimes I think things are happening, but it's just not fully visible yet. Like you said, like it's not that it's not happened yet. It's like it's happening, but we're just not quite seeing it yet. But every single thing counts. Back to the pinata theory, where you like hit it, and the first couple of hits, like you think it does nothing, but if you didn't do the first couple of hits, the last hit wouldn't hit to bust it open.
Oh, we got too many analogies. That was too good. I didn't know that we were a full room of analogies.
I love the analogy.
Yeah, this is why we all vibe on the same page. We could go endless hours talking about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question: how do we find balance in health and fitness? So, what is balance?
I think we can like start this off by saying that like honestly, like most of us were not like very balanced to start off with, like especially me, but we have all gone through this phase.
We are evolving humans, appreciating different phases for different purposes.
Yeah, I think we're very much better at like preaching balance rather than like actually doing it ourselves. Like I so much believe in balance for my clients, but really only until maybe half a year ago, I like to say that I really started like understanding what it meant for me. And I think balance is different for everyone, because a lot of what we do, especially even like training 5 days a week religiously, which to us is like, oh, you know, that's pretty normal or whatever. Like most people will find that pretty, like, I guess, not balanced for them, you know, and that's why I think like, firstly, like balance is very individualized to each person. Like, I think what I'm doing now is living a very balanced lifestyle, but again, to other people, they still think we're all probably a little bit crazy. Yeah. But so maybe like, what does balance mean to you guys
I
right
think
now?
it definitely sounds like it's defined by every individual what balance is. Like, I don't think there's an ideal balance. Or I think there is an ideal balance, like whether that be like you're living a healthy lifestyle, you are able to still go out and enjoy food with friends, you understand macros, foods. I think there's a level that you need to get at before you can have that sort of balance.
Yes.
I do believe that, you're sleeping well, you feel you're not hungry all the time, you understand kind of the processes, but then there is parts of it that you have to, if you want to stay like at a reasonable body fat, you have to understand food and educate yourself with like macros and understand what's healthy and stuff like that. Haley's going to jump in and destroy me now.
I'm not going to destroy you. No.
I love your input. She gave me that look and I was like, oh, I better stop now.
There's just one word, which is like macros. And it's something that, it's an agenda that we have pushed a lot in the health and fitness industry, but it's something that is like, it's put on a bit of a pedestal. Like, but for most people, like, who are your clients? They're lifestyle clients, who, yes, they may have a particular goal for the next 12 weeks to get to a certain body composition, but after that, they're probably going to want to return to being a normal human.
Yes.
So, they're on a meal plan for this 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think the natural, like, especially for us who have like a bodybuilding history, like naturally for us, if we're not on a meal plan, we gravitate towards counting macros and tracking our food as the next level. But the next level for me personally, what I think is going to be more beneficial for a lifestyle client or someone who's wanting to seek a healthy lifestyle and balance is actually developing more of their qualitative skills. So I would classify like counting macros and tracking and that kind of thing as a quantitative skill. Like, yes, you can weigh your food, you can put it in an app, but can you get through your whole day without that app and eat to satisfy your hunger cravings, your needs for your health, so like your micronutrient needs, your energy needs? Can you do all of that without having a scale and without having a food tracking app?
I would say I can, but I don't know like much about the micronutrient side of things.
Yeah.
But that's something I'm willing to learn. Like,
so that's what I mean. I think that for different people, the next phase is not always geared in that direction.
Like a bodybuilding, or building phase, or a cutting phase, or like a reverse diet and all of that.
How do I now go from, okay, I've achieved my goals, how do I now go
just maintain
and live? Yeah, how do I go and live? And it's like, well, you're not going to stay on a meal plan for the rest of your life. That's not feasible. Yeah. You're not going to be able to go out and eat with friends and attend events and do all of those kinds of things if you have to use a meal plan to get by. So learning more things about your hunger, like do you know when you're actually hungry? Do you know how to recognize hunger cues, how to satisfy those, what are cravings, what's true hunger, like those kinds of things. And then also looking at food and understanding it for its nutritional value and how it's going to make you feel as well. So I think it's also not just looking at it and going, okay, well, that's going to have 10 grams of carbs and 20 grams of fat, like whatever the macronutrient profile of that food is. But it's like, I'm going to look at that and go, how is that going to make me feel? Am I going to feel satiated from that? Am I going to get some like mental enjoyment out of that? Like maybe it's, you're going out for dinner and it's a social occasion and maybe it's not the highest nutritional quality food, but you're going to get satisfaction in a different way from it. How is that going to leave me feeling? And then in the short term, but also in the long term as well. Like if I continue eating this way 90% of the time, am I going to feel good? Am I going to maintain a body composition that I'm comfortable in looking at, but also like functioning as well? Can I function to the level I need to get through day-to-day life with all of these things? And I don't necessarily think that you achieve that by going straight to counting macros. Some people, it might be the best way to do so.
I believe if there's someone that needs to lose a ton of weight, they need to be like let's say it's unhealthy that they're, over 100 kilos, like we're talking like 120, 130 possibly, and then you're like, okay, this is you're at an unhealthy level, so then you probably be like, we need to cut and do this right. So that way we can get you at a healthier level. And then after, as you said, more teach them about the process of how do we now eat more, according to your hunger cues, to how you actually feel, instead of like, do you know what a hunger cue is? Or are you just eating because you're just eating it, And I think that comes down to self-awareness, as I say a lot, and it's more an education process. Like, I still believe that they need to understand what a macro is, but then at some point they don't need to really weigh it out like what I do. Like, I'm literally dieting right now. I've lost about 4 kilos, and I literally not counting macros. I literally just eat how I feel, and I kind of like, I'll just drop a little bit of this, drop a little bit of that, add a bit of cardio steps, and these are the sort of stuff that people will eventually learn once they have enough practice. But as we talk about it more, I feel like there's so much that I'm like, this is a lot. Like, to get someone to be balanced, I think it can be a longer process than what we actually perceive.
It's very mental. Like, it's not just, it's like you need to be so like self-aware. You can be so in touch with yourself. You have to have, you have to be willing to kind of get uncomfortable with yourself enough to be like, how do I really want to feel? And like, what's the blueprint of like my life going to be like, and being able to spend the time, have the energy to kind of like, with eating, like being able to, have a food diary and be like, this is how I feel after I eat this food, and this is how I feel when I'm hungry. And even when people like throw around the word intuitive eating, it's like, well, you've got to know what a craving is and what true hunger is. And like, do you know your stress levels and like all this stuff? So it's like, so like, it's such a big journey. And I think like macros can get like, you like trapped into like a box for too long. But at the very beginning, if you don't have time to really spend that time being self-aware and stuff, it's just, like a good, I guess, like training wheels, you've got that there until you're ready to make that next jump, because it kind of gives you that, bit of education, that empowerment of knowing what you're eating, like every meal day to day. And then when you're ready to make that big jump, it will be so worth it, but it does take a lot to do that.
I think education is a big part of it though. So it's probably like a little bit easier for us to say as compared to other people, because we know so much that they don't, whereas there's a lot of people who used to come to us and they're like, well, I eat really healthy, and like they think they do. They think they're like just so balanced because like, oh yeah, I eat like wheat bix for breakfast and then I have like Subway for lunch. Like it's
Isn't Subway good for you?
But like okay, well like, it depends if it's a meatball sub or not, like but
I thought chicken at KFC is good.
No, and then or maybe people are like
Protein, right?
It's protein, right? It's chicken.
Or some people say like, oh, I only eat salads and I eat salads all week, and then like on the weekend I let myself just just have like KFC or whatever. That's pretty balanced, right? But like then to us we're like, well, that's why you haven't really been getting to the goals that you want. So I think they need to go through a phase of like maybe being a little bit less balanced so that they can be more balanced the right way in the future.
It's like this initial, like, you have to change their habits and behaviors right now, because what they're doing might not exactly be getting them the results they want. So like you said, like if they're eating like a salad during the week and then just binging on the weekend, then you'd be like, you might have a bad relationship with food. Obviously then we can talk about the mental side of things as well, like a reward mechanism, having something on the weekend. There's a whole spectrum that we can go into, and as we discuss it more, I start to feel like we don't have the answer. It's too much. Now we do have the answer, but it's a lot. It's a lot for people to know. And if we told a client, hey, we're going to have to make you more self-aware, we're going to have to make you understand all of this, they're going to be like, what? It's going to be a whole year, 2-year process. It's not as simple as just 12 weeks. But at the same time, if someone's goal, like some people might just do really well on just habit and behaviors, like just really well at following the plan. They just lack a plan. They just don't like changing. They just rather have someone in their corner. You know, these are the sort of situations sometimes where people just like, I don't want to learn how to count macros. I don't like really care. I just like eating the same foods, you know, and they'll go enjoy food still. Like they'll still go out, like, you know, maybe twice a week, eat with their family and still be fine with it because they're like, oh yeah, I'll just get back on track tomorrow. I'll just eat the same meals. Do you think that's not healthy then? Haley's going to be like, I'm interested to see what Haley has to say.
Do I think that's not healthy?
Yeah, but they like it. Personally, they're like happy with it. They're like, you know, I enjoy doing this.
No, I mean,
then it's fine there.
I think that so long as they're comfortable with what they're doing and they are able to just like go through day-to-day life, and if they want to eat the same thing every day, that's
up to them, right?
Entirely up to them, of course. Yeah, I mean that comes down to individual preference. It's
their belief of what balance is.
Yeah,
you know, to them, they're like, I like this balance because I enjoy like, you know, still eating the right foods during the week, but then I enjoy occasional meal here and there. I just replace a meal and then that's it, you know? There's
So
some
what I
people
think
just
you're
feel off
trying to
that.
say is that a balance is more like a feeling.
feeling.
Like that you feel like everything is balanced for you, and like someone else may not think that it is, but if you yourself feel like it is. So like for me, how I feel balanced is that like on the days where I'm choosing to, and I've tracked macros for years, and like again, some people probably think it's crazy, but it's like I feel good.
I get on MyFitnessPal, like Nicole's been tracking for 2 years straight. Do you guys have a streak on MyFitnessPal?
I do not. I have
broken your streak? How long was your streak
that's
beforehand?
It's good.
It was long, and that was the thing. It was, I did realize though that outside of that, could I eat to my hunger cues, and like had I developed those kinds of skills as well. And I'd say that they weren't as strong as my ability to follow a plan or follow like a tracking. I can do that all day, every day, and it doesn't make me uncomfortable. It's not a bother for me to do that. I could absolutely do that all day, every day. But to do the other side of things, that would be more difficult for me to do it that way. So for me, I went, actually, that might be, it's not a problem, but it's something that like, well, I can't control everything all the time. So it was, maybe I should focus a little more on those things for a while. I know how to do this. I know how to track macros. I know how to do that.
It's like a new challenge.
I can do that in my sleep. It's like, all right, well, what don't I know how to do? And could that be valuable for me long-term, ongoing? And it was like, yes, that will be valuable not only for my life, but also if I want to start working in the realms of coaching and educating other people, I need to be able to understand it myself as well. Yeah. So, and I think there's, value from both sides, and then you can start picking from like different skill sets from both sides to develop your balance.
Yeah, the feeling of guilt, I think, like comes in as like the main thing that like kind of defines balance. And like I think, again, going back to like us who do count macros, and people always ask me, because they see me eat out pretty often, and I like to kind of show that like I do. Then they're like, well, what do you do when you eat out? I'm like, I literally don't care. Like, you know, like all my rules that I stick so strictly to on the day where like I do track, I weigh everything, I like keep all my food sources clean, like, you know, I avoid seed oils and like I avoid dairy and all that kind of stuff. But then when I eat out, the balance for me is just switching that off. It's just like, how do you track that? I'm like, I don't know. I don't track it. Like, they're like, you know, and just like, but then like, isn't there dairy in that? Or like this and that. I'm like, yeah, but like, you know, and then sometimes I'm a bit crazy. I'm like, well, I even have a Coke Zero, you know, like, it's not like I don't have like that feeling of like guilt associated with that. And I think like that's the difference, because some people, once they do that, they feel like, I'm being bad, or like, like I'm letting someone down, or like I'm not supposed to do that. And I think that's what kind of throws that like feeling of balance off, because you're just like, I'm doing something I'm not supposed to do, as opposed to like, well, like it's fine for me to do this. Like it's someone's birthday, I'm going to drink some alcohol, or like, you know, whatever the case may be. If you're traveling, I'm like, I'm not going to bring a scale, like,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like my number one, like the most rewarding thing I think with working with like my female clients is reducing food anxiety. Just like, you know, and I'm pretty sure we all have had it or had it. Like, I know I had food anxiety really bad, and like that mentality where it's like, I had a bad meal last night, I'm not going to eat food today because the scale is up and I can't eat food. Like, that's just like trying to rewrite that in your mind is very hard. And I think when people start to, become a little bit more open to like, you know what, it was one meal or one day, getting back on track, that just honestly removes so much stress and anxiety and like helps contribute to balance. And it's just, it's so nice when people do find that little bit of a win for themselves.
It's like they have to rewire their brain.
Yeah.
And I think the most important part is just keep going at it until you find what you feel is the best balance for you. And I think that's like, how's your lifestyle? Because you could be like a very social person that like literally goes out every week, or you could be a business worker that, you know, has to entertain guests all the time. So you have to go out to eat. So you have to kind of find your balance, because I find that business workers will tend to be like, I always train. I do cardio because that makes me feel good, so that I can kind of enjoy a meal out with my, people I'm entertaining. So it's like a business choice. So you see, there's people find their sort of balance, but you should never judge anyone else for their balance. Be like, oh, that's imbalanced, because there's no such thing as balance. As you said, it's how you actually feel individually. That's the real key to finding that longevity in what you're doing.
I think also like on social media, like some people kind of like have been putting down being balanced. I don't know, have you guys seen like posts or like things about like that? They're like, oh, like if you want to ever be good at anything or if you want to excel, like you can't have balance. And
that is a different topic, because I do feel like, yes, if you want to excel at anything, you have to put in the work, and the balance is off. You have to choose to do one thing only.
Yeah, and I think if you're like again, you've got a weight loss goal or a comp prep goal, or you've got a wedding prep that you want to get for, you're not going to be balanced. Like, it's when you've like achieved that,
the ability to switch off from that.
And I think there's a time to grind to get after what you want, and then there's a time to enjoy that. Or to like you're maintaining because you're happy with where you're at, and you don't need to grind for the rest of your life necessarily. I think
when you step back for the bigger picture of like the year, for example, again, someone who like all of us who competes, we go through periods of our life where it's like a little bit imbalanced, but in order to make that year balance, then we have to relax a little bit and just like let go of the reins a little bit in the other time, so that when you step back a little bit more, that year is balanced, because you went through a time of being really intense, or like someone who's gone through like a 12-week challenge, or like really focusing for like that 12 weeks of going after what you want, and then having a bit of a phase where you're like a little bit more like intuitive maybe, or something like that. And then once you step back from that, you're like, well, overall, those like 30 weeks or so, it's pretty balanced. So what do you think? I don't know. You look at me in a way that I think I'm crazy.
I'm just thinking like, I mean, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I do feel like, as you said, as I was saying, it's more about balance that you find as an individual. Like, so for you, but I enjoy like one meal out a week in my off season, which is still not a lot considering that you're still strict like the rest of the week. But that's your balance. You see, that's where you're finding what works for you, and that's how you feel. You relieve. Okay, I feel good. Like I'm still going towards my goal, but obviously your goal could be a future goal, like of competing, and that could be like 2 years down the track. So it's a long goal, but it's about understanding obviously that you don't have to be perfect in that long goal, but you have to prioritize this at, most of the time.
Yeah.
Like whether that be eating your protein and doing all of that. Because do you think you could be a great bodybuilder eating 2 protein meals a day?
Yeah, James will be like, yes, you can.
Like, do you think we'll have optimal results compared to eating 4 or 5 meals a day of protein?
I'm on the team 4 or 5 meals. That's something I'm really pushing.
Correct, because that's what the study suggests. Yeah. So therefore, we kind of know that, your body can digest so much protein in one sitting. And so, some extent, yes, you would have to eat 5 meals a day. So you still are prioritizing that because your end goal is still like competing. So I think like, this balance is, it sways. I think it does sway throughout the year of what you're doing, and it's about adjusting to the year. I don't know if you brought it up, but you talked about RP, I think in the last question, and it's like rate of perceived exertion, same as like stress levels, is all perceived as what you perceive. So if you're going through a busy time in life, whether you're going on a holiday or something like that, that could lead to an imbalance there, because you could just be eating more foods out, but that's fine. And you come back, you get back on track, you might have to then be like, okay, I need to be a bit more stricter because I gained like 3 kilos. And then you have to be a bit more stricter during that time just to kind of bring your weight back down. But then if you understood and educated yourself, you understand food, you could probably go overseas, wherever you're going, and still eat relatively clean and gain no weight. I mean, you guys have gone overstate, interstate, and you've gone on holiday and you probably not gain any weight, right? Like, have you guys ever been on holiday like that?
Well,
Haley loses weight, for example. Haley's a great example that she undereats because the amount of food she generally eats is less. It's more than that. And then so therefore when she goes on holiday, it's less. But most of us, I can go on holiday and still kind of be the same weight when I come back. Because I kind of understand the food concepts. I'm educated enough to know, okay, no, I had like a really fatty meal. I'm going to just eat like, salad and chicken just to kind of make up for the balance of how much food I need to eat. And I enjoy eating salad and stuff. But I enjoy eating clean food. Clean food tastes yum. I don't know. Wait, is everyone looking at me like I'm weird?
Oh, no, it's just because you mentioned salads and then the rest of us are just like,
oh, okay. So there's another topic that we'll talk about.
We're just like, oh my god.
We got cereals and then we got oxalates. This is a whole nother topic.
This is not low hanging fruit. This is
like,
we climb to the top of the tree and we're shaking some.
We don't want to scare people now, but there's a lot more deeper conversations we're going to have. This is just like a touch basis to kind of see what, it's kind of
like our kumbaya chats and then we have the crazy ones.
So that's the end of S Legion Couch episode number 2. If you really enjoyed it, make sure you share it with your friends. And if you do have questions for us to answer, shoot us with those questions. Ask any of the coaches here and I'm sure we'll answer it in the next couch talk. But thank you for listening, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
Yeah.